Although the Salem witch trials that took place from 1692 to 1693 were an extreme tragedy, they were also an important stepping stone for the right of the accused and the idea of innocence until proven guilty. During this time, many women and children, and even some men, were executed due to simple accusations with no evidence. The church failed at the responsibility of keeping their citizens safe, leaving many dead and traumatized. In Massachusetts, 1692, Salem was divided into two sections, Salem Village and Salem Town. Salem Town was a large port around 15 miles from Boston. It housed the wealthier people and was known for its fishing and trade. Salem Village was a rural farming community just outside of Salem Town, with a smaller population and deeply religious views. The village had strong, puritanical opinions and a strict theocratic government. The clergy ruled and was led by the Reverend Samuel Parris. Wealthy men that owned land also had a bit of power in the government, leading to lots of arguments. Women and children had fewer rights. Women were often seen as morally weak and very vulnerable to the devil's influence. A typical day in the life of someone in Salem was service, prayer, and labor. Most things that were not directly religious or for the betterment of the community were seen as sinful. The devil was seen as a constant threat, something always lurking, waiting to tempt people into sin. So when young girls began acting strange, it caused quite the disturbance.
Shout to the God! To the God!
They began screaming, convulsing, and claiming to be tormented by witches. When doctors couldn't find a medical explanation, the girls were questioned and named 3 women as their tormentors.
Tituba, a Caribbean slave,
and beg forgiveness of God.
Yes, yes, I beg God, forgive me.
Sarah Good, a poor beggar, and Sarah Osborne, a woman judged for her tendency of missing church. Tituba confessed, likely due to all the pressure put on her, which was added to the hysteria and fear of the people in Salem. Her detailed confession led to her being not hanged, but imprisoned for months, where she was later sold.
Sarah Good denied the accusations but was testified against by people close to her, including her neighbors and even her husband, leading her to be hanged on July 19, 1692. Like Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne also denied the accusations, but due to her poor health and her frail state, she found it hard to properly defend herself. She was put in jail, but died in May 1692, likely due to pre-existing health conditions. These trials set the groundwork for all the hysteria to come. The confessions of Tituba gave some legitimacy to the accusations made by the girls, leaving all doubts anybody had to fizzle away. These trials sparked further allegations by townspeople and also people like Tituba, who would blame others in an attempt to save themselves.
When someone was accused, the process would often go like this. They would be accused by a family member or a neighbor following a recent argument, a pre-existing grudge, or a strange experience like a livestock dying after the person was near them. They would then be brought in by the authorities for questioning. Questioning often consisted of attempting to coerce the person to confess and even admit to others who could be practicing witchcraft as well. Spectral evidence was commonly used in these trials. It consisted of the idea of visions or spirits of the accused going to haunt or torment the accuser. Other things that could have indicated witchcraft were strange scars or marks on the body. Then came time for the actual trial. By this point, the accused was already as good as guilty. They had no lawyers, and any attempts to defend themselves often fell on deaf ears, leaving them completely to the will of the extremely puritanical judges that would oversee their cases. Trials would almost always end in guilty verdicts, and guilty verdicts would almost always end in death. The only people considered guilty but survived were those who confessed. They were spared of execution, but were instead imprisoned due to their confession being seen as atonement. Though alive, their reputations when they got out of jail were always in shambles, as it was almost impossible to regain any trust after being accused of something so dastardly. Executions were often held in public places to make an example out of them and further strike fear into the hearts of the people. Most were hanged, but one man, Giles Corey, was pressed to death after refusing to confess. Though execution was the worst of the two, being imprisoned was still an absolutely terrible punishment. Those who were imprisoned were shoved into tight spaces and overcrowded due to the large number of accusations. There was also no sanitation, bedding, or toilets, leaving many to fall to disease. Though taken away from their jobs, prisoners were still expected to pay for their own food, bedding, and other necessities, meaning if they could not scrounge up the money to pay for this, they could starve, freeze, or otherwise suffer extreme deprivation. Over time, skepticism grew about the use of spectral evidence. Doubts began coming out about its reputability as trusted people were starting to be accused. Well-known figures like Increase Mather, a pastor, began going against the trials, making claims like it is better for 10 guilty people to be free than for one innocent person to be condemned. The final straw was when the wife of Governor William Phips was accused, causing him to dissolve the court in October of 1692. He replaced it with one that disallowed the use of spectral evidence, causing the trials to finally come to their end. In early 1693, many of the remaining accused were acquitted, and all of the people waiting for their execution were pardoned. In 1697, Judge Samuel Sewall, a prominent judge during the trials, publicly apologized and confessed to wrongly convicting and executing dozens of people. In 1711, many of the executed's convictions were reversed and the families were financially compensated. And even as recently as 2001, the final group of the accused were exonerated and deemed officially innocent by the state of Massachusetts. The Salem witch trials caused the death of an estimated 25 people and the destruction of family and social settings. Many families were destroyed socially, emotionally, and financially, leaving them to pick up the pieces of their lives, now missing a family member and the respect of the entire community. The citizens experienced pure panic. Even with the use of spectral evidence disallowed, the citizens still feared the devil, and that they, themselves, or a family member may soon be possessed by witches. Courts were distrusted, first because of their rash convictions and use of spectral evidence, and then because of them taking back all of their prior claims. Despite the immediate catastrophic outcome of the trials, they did bring some good to society in the long term. Many realized how unjust the legal system was. With no fair trials for the accused and the minimal requirements for evidence, people were very commonly falsely imprisoned. People were coerced to confess and very oftenly accused others, even strangers, in an attempt to save themselves. These realizations began causing the justice system to slowly begin providing more rights for the accused. The principle of innocent until proven guilty was officialized in the Human Rights Act of 1998. To prove an accusation, much more evidence is now needed. These additions have led to much fairer trials and more accurate convictions.